Hey guys, I just went ahead and fully finished Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn. It took me about 14 and a half hours. I did all of the side quests, but I probably missed a couple like collectibles and stuff like that. And I didn't even bother with the side mini games. There's this little mini game where you can move a coin around the board. You got to make a triangle. I didn't even bother with it. I played it like twice and was not a big fan. So who knows? Maybe some ultimate challenge or something is hidden behind that mini game, but I'm not gonna lie, I played it a little bit, was not impressed, didn't touch it again. But I did everything else in the game. Let me go ahead and give you my pros, my cons, and then my final verdict. But overall, I did actually enjoy my time with the game, and I think it's definitely worth your time if you're playing on Game Pass. The first pro I'll say is that I'm actually a big fan of the gameplay mechanics, the actual combat of the game. There's a lot more going on here than something like a Dark Souls game, and I actually really enjoyed all of the mechanics of the combat. They have some things from Sekiro in terms of like parrying and building up essentially like a poise meter in order to take the armor off of enemies. They have unblockable attacks, but you can counter them with your pistol, which is kind of an interesting mechanic because your right bumper attacks and your right trigger shoots your gun. And you can utilize, shooting your gun to cancel enemy animations. And it has 3 skill trees that you can, you put points into and you level up and they unlock new abilities. And I actually really like a lot of the skills in it. Very few of them kind of feel like throwaway, kind of trash skills. A lot of them are pretty interesting. And especially once you get into the ability to essentially parry the unparryable skills by perfectly timing shooting your gun. You can actually enter a sort of like flow state when all of the combat perfectly clicks. And I found it to be very, very fun. Add on top of that a unique mechanic that I've never seen in another Souls-like, where you have a multiplier. You can see it on the left-hand side of the screen that will build up as you utilize, your arsenal of abilities and don't get hit. If you get hit, you lose that multiplier. So it's almost like a Devil May Cry type of game where you're trying to build up that combo meter. You're trying to be a little stylish as you're doing things. And add on top of even that, the fact that you can get certain things that'll utilize his reputation, like this sword, for example, that I'm using in the gameplay, which will do exponentially more damage based upon what your multiplier is for your souls. And it does some really interesting things. I am actually quite a big fan of the combat. It functions instead of a Souls-like, it's definitely more like God of War, like action game, third-person era God of War, especially with the fact that Enki is essentially just Atreus. You press Y or triangle and it will attack with Enki as you're doing attacks. But it does some things that I actually kind of wish God of War did. Like, for example, you can get skills that make it so your damage is basically doubled if you attack in time with Enki attacking. So there's quite a high level of skill there where you're trying to press Y to have Enki attack them and then perfectly time your attack to hit at the same time. You can utilize Enki in order to spread status effects that maybe you're building onto characters, whether that's fire or poison. And you can also get unique abilities based on your armor that add a few layers to combat as well. So overall, I'm actually pretty impressed with the combat on display for the game. I'm also pretty impressed with the game graphically. It's nothing crazy in terms of faces or anything like that, but the actual environments, especially when you crank up the settings, do look quite good. The actual texture work, on the rocks and stuff like that is pretty impressive. And the particle effects and lighting are quite good as well. I also, when the audio works, I think it's pretty impressive. The voice acting, especially from Enki, is pretty good, but Nor really delivers some emotion in a lot of her lines. And I have to say, it kind of sucks that everybody, if a game has Sweet Baby Incorporated attached to it at all, obviously there's going to be like a subset of people that just despise the game. They're going to hate the game no matter what. But it kind of sucks that that's kind of what everybody's talking about with the game. Everyone's like, oh no, black female character. When realistically, I think she does a fantastic job. I really do. I think the voice acting that she has is, especially through like the more emotional scenes, is really, really good. She hits those voice falter moments. She hits those, emotional set piece moments really, really well. So I think the voice acting is pretty good. And I also think the music is pretty good. The music, once again, I'll talk about in the cons, the audio balancing and stuff like that. But the music, when it's playing and when you can hear it and when it's not blowing your eardrums out, I think it's quite good as well. But let's get into, the negatives, because everything is not, sunshines and rainbows. The length. The game, I believe, is $50 if you don't play it on Game Pass. And I do think $50 is going to be a little steep for some people, considering, like I said, it's 14 and a half hours to, complete it and do everything other than the little side missions. Of course, I don't really like talking about length and time and like money and stuff like that for things that are on Game Pass, because they are on Game Pass. So I kind of just view it as the subscription to Game Pass for a month. It's very easy to just get Game Pass for a month, which is like $10, $12 now, I guess, if you're on PC. God forbid you're on console, it's 20. And then, just cancel the auto renew or whatever, and you're good to go to play the game. So I don't really think that's too big of a negative on the game. One of the big negatives, though, is the narrative. I don't really care too much about the narrative. There's supposed to be like some of these moments that are very like heart-wrenching, and they're supposed to like tug on your feels, and I was ready to feel, man. I was ready to feel. And unfortunately, I felt that they just kind of dropped the ball on the delivery. I was not very impressed. I'm a guy that's very easy to cry. Hundreds of thousands of people have seen me cry to video game trailers, for God's sake. I'm not exactly this stoic dude that's super hard to make cry. So I was ready for it, but yeah, I don't know. Did not stick the landing in terms of making me feel the feels. And just in general, I found, the narrative to be okay. Nothing insane, nothing impressive, really. And I did find the ending to be particularly bad. I don't think the ending was very good at all. Obviously, I won't go into any detail on why, but just saying, was not too impressed by the actual ending of the game. Also, the audio issues. Yeah, these are big ones, man. The audio balancing is terrible. You get into a boss fight, and all of a sudden, your ears are just bleeding. It's like you're going into a fucking gun range, on the 4th of July, and no hearing protection. It is crazy. And then, on top of that, the dialogue will just sometimes sound like it's like a million feet away when the person is right in front of you. You'll turn the camera 3 degrees to the right, and now it's like really loud and you can hear them perfectly. It's very spotty audio design. I don't really know what's going on there. And I also think that overall, the enemy design did start to get a little bit repetitive. I was, starting to get a little bit disappointed. I would have also liked to see, in terms of enemy design, more bosses. There is really only like 3 or 4 big bosses in the game. There's like some baby bosses, but for the most part, there's only a few bosses. Ignore that. Don't look at that. But overall, I felt that since the game was so short, the enemy design wasn't too big of a flaw on the actual full product of the game. Overall, I enjoyed my time with it. I do not think it's, anything crazy. I do think it does some unique things mechanically in terms of the gameplay, but the story did not manage to grip me like, God of War, its counterpart, I would say. It's the most similar game that I can think of, at least. It's like God of War with some Souls-like elements. So the actual story didn't grip me very much. I thought that it was definitely a little bit short, and it has some technical issues. So while I did enjoy the gameplay part of it, and especially like the combat once it all clicked and you enter that flow state and you're utilizing all the mechanics at your disposal, I think overall this is like a 6 out of 10. So for me, a 5 is average, a 6 is above average, a 7 is good. I think it's above average. It's fine. I've definitely played way, way worse Souls-likes. And I think since it's on Game Pass, it really doesn't hurt you to try it and play through. I mean, it's not terribly long. Now, personally, I would never buy this game for a full $50. Of course, that's going to vary from person to person, but I would never buy it for a full 50. But I do like enough about the game to say that I personally think it's worth playing, at least on Game Pass. But let me know what you guys think. Did you play the game and love the game? Do you hate the game because Sweet Baby Incorporated is, attached to it? How dare they? Or do you hate the game for, other reasons that are, maybe a little bit more valid than that? Let me know. I always love hearing everybody's opinions on games, but that'll do it for me. Thank you everybody for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see all of you in the next video or from Stream. Bye bye.